1. You're not banging because you're not connecting. First off, if you're having less sex than you once were, there's no need to panic. Variations in sexual frequency are normal through different relationship stages, says Carolina Pataky, LMFT, a sex therapist and founder of South Florida's Love Discovery Institute. After all, the amount of sex you can or want to have is going to be different when you're pre-kids than when you're bed sharing, or when you're wiped from work versus on sabbatical. 2. You're on opposite sides of the I want sex spectrum and can't talk about it. To be very clear, it is possible for people with different interests in sex to be in a happy marriage. There are many lower libido and high libido folks, as well as asexual folks and allosexual folks, who are in happy, lasting unions. Couples that struggle with navigating different libidos need to be able to open up and talk about these differences, says Shannon Chavez-Creasy, SIDE, CST, a licensed psychologist and sex therapist based in Beverly Hills. There's a good chance that the person who craves sex more is feeling rejected and unwanted, or that the person who craves sex less or not at all is feeling like their partner only loves them for their body, she says. Communication is what helps remind both partners what is true as opposed to what their fears tell them, she says. 3. Sex is your only form of intimacy. Yes, sex is one form of intimacy, but it's not the only form. There is also intellectual, romantic, spiritual, and experiential intimacy, to name just a few. It's crucial to understand that while a high frequency of sexual activity can contribute positively to a couple's connection, an excessive focus on sex may signal an attempt to compensate for other relational shortcomings, says Pataky. If the bedroom is the only place where you feel intimately connected with your partner, she says, it may be a sign that you're using sex as a temporary escape for relationship shortcomings rather than a holistic expression of intimacy, she says. Here, you'd be rewarded by investing in, exploring, and nurturing your emotional, intellectual, and communicative connections alongside your sexual ones, she says. Some suggestions go on a monthly exhibit date to a different museum in your city, sign up for a pottery or painting class together, or invest and play some table topics for your next date night. 4. You keep threatening divorce. Does every argument, disagreement, or miscommunication end with one of you threatening to call the divorce attorney? That's a problem, according to Pataky. If you are threatening divorce because you are truly at the point of thinking you may need to leave the relationship, it's still not best to threaten divorce, says licensed mental health counselor Alana Carvalho, LMHC, a therapist and host of the Copdindent Perfectionist podcast. Instead, you want to be honest with your partner that certain things in the relationship need to change or get addressed, or that the relationship ending is a possible next step for you, she says. For instance, if your partner refuses couples counseling or attempts to actively work on the issues in a relationship, it may be appropriate to put a boundary in place and share that divorce may be a reality if they're not willing to work on the issues impacting the relationship, she says. 5. You have divorce fantasies. Just because you're not threatening divorce or naming divorce as a potential option to your partner doesn't mean your preoccupation with divorce is healthy. Entertaining fantasies about divorce can also be a significant issue in a marriage, says Pataky. This can often signal that there has been an accumulation of resentments throughout the relationship that have built up, likely due to lack of communication, she says. Daydreams and other fantasies where you are married to someone else are also a sign that your relationship needs the plug pulled, or some defibrillation ASAP. Sure, imagining you're married to someone else or single isn't always something to worry about. But if the fantasy has become regular, it's time to take inventory of your love life. Sometimes these fantasies reflect an individual's frustration with the current state of the relationship, typically due to an individual's inability or unwillingness to express their feelings and needs constructively, explains Pataky. Here, the fantasy partner represents who the current spouse might be, if the unhappy individual just asked for what they needed. In other cases, these fantasies suggest that you're okay with the idea of a life sans spouse, and if you're okay with the idea of a life sans your spouse, you probably don't actually want a life with them. 6. You keep fantasizing about cheating. When you get married, you put on a ring, not blinders, so it's totally normal to continue to find other people attractive emotionally or physically, even if you and your partner are in a monogamous relationship. Still, if you're having recurring thoughts about emotionally and/or physically breaking boundaries, cheating on your spouse, you're pulling away from your marriage, says Furman. In these instances, there is something missing from your marriage that you're searching for in other people. Pinpointing exactly what is missing from your marriage and addressing it is essential here to keep your fantasies from turning into real-world cheating. 7. One of you actually cheated. Just ask Esther Perel. An affair doesn't have to mean the end of a relationship. If this reference is above your head, consider reading up on her book, The State of Affairs. However, if one of you is still harboring feelings of resentment post-affair, you may have some work to do. Pain from unhealed wounds like infidelity can manifest themselves in a number of ways, including guilting your partner for something you said you'd forgiven them for and struggling to trust them, says Fuhrman. While you don't need to forget that an infidelity ever happened, you do need to move past it in such a way that it doesn't color every interaction you have moving forward, she says. If you and your spouse can't seem to move past it after giving it your best shot, you might have to just admit you're unhappy and discuss getting outside help, taking time apart, or separating altogether. 8. They're keeping secrets. Have a hunch your partner has a relationship with something else, or someone else on the side. Many spouses' guts start to tingle when their partner stops offering details about their day, or when their stories about where they've been aren't adding up. A spouse being vague in order to cover up an affair, addiction, or substance abuse struggle is a very common relationship stressor that, if not addressed, might push you and your partner towards Splitsville, says Fuhrman. Your move here is going to depend on exactly what your partner is hiding, if anything. If, for example, they are hiding a dependence on opioids, booze, or porn, you're likely going to require a different type of intervention than if they are banging their assistant. But regardless, therapy can be a helpful starting point. An individual therapist can help you come up with a plan for addressing the issue or intervening on your own terms. Meanwhile, a couples therapist can help you translate your grievances to your partners, as well as help you come up with a plan as a team. 9. They're no longer your confidant. Who do you text deets about the career-changing project you've just been assigned at work? Who do you call to gush about the heart-opening chat you just had with your sibling? If the answer is not your beau, that could be a red flag. No doubt, relationships need some transparency to last, and you can definitely keep certain things private in your life, says Fuhrman. But if you're not sharing big life events and intel with your partner, and find yourself offering up more details to your acquaintances or coworkers than your beau, you might have some issues to work out. In some instances, the lack of sharing happens because you haven't historically or recently felt heard or embraced by your partner. In other instances, it could be because you feel more excited to talk to other people. These situations and others are fixable, but will require work, she says, whether that means a couples therapist or some big conversations about how you communicate. 10. You feel neglected. Quick list some adjectives that describe how you're feeling about your current sitch. If you're feeling lonely, hurt, neglected, or some other not-so-ideal feeling, Fuhrman suggests leaning into that. No, not wallowing, but interrogating where those feelings are coming from. By digging deeper, she says, you'll be able to identify what's making you feel abandoned by your partner. Maybe it's their endless stories about how great their new gym buddy is, or the fact that they routinely dedicate all their time, attention, and physical touch to your kids, leaving you in the dust.